Like I said, my first movie back in theaters, Shang-Chi. It's been freaking forever since I went to the theaters. It's been forever since I've seen a Marvel movie. I didn't watch Black Widow or anything like that. So this is the first Marvel movie I've seen in a while. It's a lot, man. So we're talking spoilers because this is coming out Sunday. I'm assuming most of you guys have seen the movie. What are your thoughts? Let's get into it. Spoilers. Let's talk about this movie here.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Shang-Chi a lot. I thought that it was super interesting, first of all, to take on the villain in the beginning of the movie and kind of see his whole arc and how that progressed and him falling in love, having kids, living a life, and how he really changed over time. And we're in spoilers. And when the wife dies, usually it's a trope. I'm like, but here I thought it really lent to the story well because he really became a different person after that. And you saw it in everything he did with his children, with his life. It really ruined him. But he had the 10 rings, and that really became more of a weapon as time went on. I thought that was so cool, that psychological deterioration of how he was versus how he became, and his family, and the whole arc of Shang-Chi himself growing up in San Francisco and kind of maturing as time went on, but not really going anywhere. And then he gets called by his father, and they have the whole journey. And from there, I thought it progressed beautifully.
Yeah, I mean, okay, like first things first, the action was the best action that has ever been in any Marvel movie. And look, that's what kind of pisses me off because that's honestly, like, I like Marvel. I'm a Marvel nerd. But especially when you're reviewing it, I'm a little more critical. So like, look, it doesn't mean I hate it, but I'm going to be more critical, like compared to reaction videos, right? Like, reaction video, you're going to pull out the positives. Whereas here it's like, I'm going to hit it hard. I have always been a critic of action and the way it's filmed in Marvel movies. The Russo brothers did it best, but I think that a lot of times, depending on the Marvel movie, but a lot of times it's a weakness in the movies. Things like Guardians and stuff like that, the action is just, it's not the highlight. And there's other things. The characters are good, but the action's usually weak. Not only was the action amazing in this movie, it was filmed well in this movie. They showed everything. They didn't hide it. They didn't do a million cuts per punch, per swipe, per everything. I thought the way the camera worked with the action was really better than almost any Marvel movie I've ever seen. It may be some of the best action in any Marvel movie I've ever seen. Which is frustrating because I know obviously this was kind of a take on some of the like traditional Chinese Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Like it was reminiscent of those films, which are obviously martial arts heavy. But it's so sad to me because I feel like just because it's a martial arts movie, the fighting is good. But that doesn't mean that movies that aren't martial arts movies can't have good fighting and can't have it filmed well. That's so frustrating to me. Like Daredevil did it great. Punisher did it great. Why can't, some of these other things do it like that? So it's kind of a pro and a con. I wasn't a huge, so I liked the idea. I liked the feel. I really liked how the movie didn't feel like a Marvel movie. It felt like a legend, like it's the legend of the 10 rings. And it did. It felt like a Chinese legend. I feel like it did suffer a little bit as far as characters, pretty much. I feel like I really liked the idea of the dynamic between the father and the kids. I feel like that wasn't done as well as it could have been. I feel like we didn't really feel the effects of that kind of a youth on Shang as much as I would have liked. And so then I think as a result, it made kind of the conflict with the father a little bit less dramatic. Like, I liked all the ideas. I really liked the idea of the father still being in love with the wife, as opposed to, like, turning into this, like, decrepit, old, hating person, which a lot of movies would do. It's like, he did, but then he almost was doing this, like, he was getting manipulated because he still did love his wife. I liked that a lot. I feel like it suffered a little bit with some of the characters and the actual character beats. Like, I didn't care about Shang and his sister and the father as much as I wished I did.
No, I get that. And I think that it's definitely kind of one of those things that we could have spent more time on. I personally thought the three of them worked really well together, but I get that with a lot of the side people and characters you have to introduce, you kind of negate from that, especially when you get towards the sister's family. And I'll be straight up honest with you, it was fun for the bit, but I kind of grew tired of the whole drawing out the Mandarin plot. Like, I understand Iron Man 3 did happen and we had that, but that for me is the weakest point of the movie, where we spent all this time with Trevor when we're like, really, I felt like we should have been spending time with the family.
Yeah, I feel like we didn't really need to, like, I feel like honestly, maybe we didn't even need to mention it. But like if we did, I feel like we didn't need to spend time with Trevor. I would have liked more time with, and that's the thing that frustrated me a little bit. And it's frustrating because it was like, to me, it was almost like one of the best Marvel movies of all time. Like it was there, but it wasn't, right? And so it was like I was frustrated because I really liked the chemistry. I liked the his relationship with Aquafina, Casey, right? Casey, is that her name? Katie. I liked his relationship with Katie. I liked that dynamic. That was really interesting, having this like really close friendship. And the chemistry between all the characters was good. I liked Shang. He had charisma, right? But it was just like those emotional beats, it weren't there for me as much as I feel like they should have been. And then because of that, right, like that fight at the end with the father, like would have been so epic. I feel like if they had spent a little bit more time on that relationship and they had shown, you know, how close Shang was to his father, maybe in the beginning, or different things like that a little bit. I think that would have made the action, which was super cool, have this like emotional weight to it that was like amazing. So I mean, it was a solid Marvel movie. I don't think it was amazing. I enjoyed it. I had a good time. It's visually really stunning. I just feel like kind of my biggest gripe is I wish that there was a little bit more of a, they had spent a little bit more time on the characters, so that like in all of this amazing visuals and fighting and different things like that, there had been a little bit more of a weight to it.
Yeah, definitely. Kind of, we can stay with the main characters a little bit more as opposed to just going for the bit, because I know Marvel does that, and I feel like there were times when it worked, like for me with the cage fight in the beginning, and then there are times for me when they completely derailed the plot, and I was like, well, what's the point? Like the forest in the beginning was great, and then they had the whole second act. Cool. This whole second act where they kind of ruined it, and I was like, okay, well, I get it, but you're just going for the bit here. You're not actually committing to the story.
Yeah, and a little bit in the middle there when they met Trevor, it made it feel a little bit disjointed. Like you were like, what? And it just felt a little bit off. But dude, there were some moments that like I died. Like when they ended the movie and they did the after credit scene and he was like, or dude, that killed me. Like that was so funny. That was such a funny callback. I thought that was super cool. What do you think? Like, what is the new? So like, I'm gonna be the old man watching Marvel movies 30 years from now, being like, Phase 1 through 4 was my day. We got Iron Man. You know, I think nothing is ever gonna beat that. But what do you think? Because we got a little bit of a taste of what the new Avengers are starting to look like. What do you think of that?
I think it's really interesting, kind of something that I feel like the MCU has to prove to everybody, and I like that because for so long it's been the other way around, where it's like, here's our story, here's our arc, here's Endgame, now we're done. But now we're in this weird sort of turnaround period where really they kind of have to keep going, keep our interest. And I don't mean it in a weird way, just in a story-wise way. Phase 4, going forward, they have a plan, but I feel like they're going to have to kind of pull out of the box, kind of like what James Gunn did for Suicide Squad. He's like, here's things you don't know that I'm going to show you that I hope you'll like. And in the end, it worked out.
Yeah. It's almost harder than the original MCU because now you have an example of it done just about as good as you can do it. And so not only do they have to start kind of from scratch, not quite, but kind of, and then they have to do better than they already did with these kind of new. So they're under a lot of harsh skepticism, which is a challenge. I don't know really what to think yet. We'll see. I want to see, you know, Captain Marvel and how that all plays out and where, because watching the after credit scene, it feels like she's kind of in charge, which I'm not a huge fan of because I don't know. I've never really liked her character that much. Like she's fine. Marvel hasn't really done anything with her to where I'm like, oh, I want her to lead the Avengers, you know? Like I'd rather a Doctor Strange or even heck like a Spider-Man rise to the occasion and kind of be the new Captain America and lead the Avengers.
Yeah, I think and eventually they'll have a way to do that. I just don't think she had her moment yet. I feel like for Captain America, it definitely was Winter Soldier, where people started to take him more seriously. Like, okay, this guy can actually hold his own.
Yes, but I still really liked him in Avengers. Like, it made me fall truly in love with him in Winter Soldier, but I liked him in Avengers a lot. Whereas Captain Marvel, I don't know. Maybe it's just her powers and everything like that. There just hasn't been a moment yet in the MCU where I'm like, go Captain Marvel. Like, you know.
Yeah, and I think her moment will come, whether we accept it or not. We'll find out. But I think they're preparing for that. Yeah,
it's just my worry. But we'll see. We'll see where it goes. I mean, I like Shang-Chi. He's cool. I love his powers. I love the visuals. I love the mechanics of the 10 rings. Like, I'm really excited. That's a very unique Marvel power. I will give them that. And that's one of the things that I really liked about this movie is it didn't feel like a Marvel movie. That's probably the biggest plus ever. Even more than Black Panther, which kind of tried to do the same thing. This truly felt like otherworldly. Like, it felt like a myth or a legend. And there was no blue beam in the sky. There wasn't any of that kind of stuff. And I liked that. It was still a little bit like giant CGI monsters fighting at the end, but they were done really well. So they looked cool at least. And I think just cool stuff like that. Like, I'm really looking forward to things like that in the MCU where it's like, okay, we've had our Captain America, we've had our Iron Mans. Let's do something different. Let's have a character who's not just the quippy guy or whatever. Let's have some powers that aren't just a laser beam or energy, kind of like Captain Marvel. Sorry, not to call her out, but something that isn't that, something that's a little more original. I really like the 10 rings because it's this very unique kind of blend of like swinging and punching and power moves that is wholly unique from anything I've seen in a Marvel movie.
Yeah, they really used that to their advantage and were able to be super creative with how they used it and how you were able to use it as a weapon and how you're able to use it as a tool. And I think that's such a cool dynamic for the end fight with him and his dad was that from the beginning they showed you that there are two ways you could use this as an offense or a defense.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so interesting that how they were able to harness that and show that in the first act and the third act, because that's something that usually we just see, like Thor's hammer, it's used for one thing and one thing only, and same thing with the shield. So this is more versatility to it.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm kind of up in the air. I'm very tentative. I'm cautiously optimistic about the MCU going forward. I don't know whether I'm gonna like it or not. I'm really not sure. Not a lot of people liked Black Widow. We'll kind of see when that comes out. This was solid. It wasn't particularly bad. Also, to me though, it wasn't particularly outstanding as far as the Marvel roster goes. It's a solid Marvel movie. It's up there with Thor 1 and a few of those things where it's like, oh, it's a solid movie. If you like that clip, you can watch full episodes of the White Noise Podcast on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you find your podcasts, and I'm going to link all those in the description down below. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you there.